Welcome to Congressman DeSaulnier's Fire Safety Town Hall here at Mirmani High School. We're so glad you were able to join us this morning. When you walked in, there should have been a question card on your seat. If you don't have one, feel free to go connect with my colleagues at the front table over there, and we're happy to get you one. If you'd like to ask a question for the Congressman or one of our panelists, please fill out your question card completely, and we will get to as many questions as possible. If you've been here before, you know the drill. If we don't get to your question, we will respond to it after the town hall if you've filled it out completely. So we need to be able to have your contact information there at the top. We're going to begin the question and answer portion with questions about fire safety, given the topic of this town hall. But if you have a question about a different topic, we will do our best to get to it. If you have a complete question card right now, feel free to raise it in the air and one of my colleagues will come collect it. I'd like to start us off this morning by recognizing a few special guests we have us. Joining us today, we have Orinda Vice Mayor Brandon Iverson, Orinda Council Member Janet Riley, Moraga Orinda Fire District Deputy Chief Lucas Lambert, Rachel Zenner from State Senator Grayson's office, the Mayor of Moraga, Steve Wolicki, Fire Advisory Fire Commissioner for District 5, Richard Nakano, and Jill Ray from Supervisor Anderson's office. And now I'm going to turn it over to Vice Mayor Brandon Iverson to welcome you to Orinda and to introduce the Congressman.
Thank you and good morning. I'm going to keep this very brief, but I know Congressman DeSaulnier has been doing a lot of town halls lately, and the theme of most of those is lack of alignment. And today, while we have a hard problem to talk about, what we have is a great deal of alignment. In the few years that I've been serving on the council, the lessons we've learned from the insurance crisis and from Palisades has brought together federal attention and resources and state attention and resources, county, city. The schools and fire districts are working together. Neighbors are working with neighbors in a way that is really awesome. We've got over 40 FireWise neighborhoods certified just in Orinda and Moraga. That's over 5,000 dwellings that are covered, so it's not just hardened homes, but hardened communities. We are getting the best technology put to work, both in fire modeling and traffic modeling, so that resources we get are put to the highest priorities. We're really working together and we have accomplished a tremendous amount. So today, the nice thing is we're talking about how problems and when problems, but this community is pulled together in a way that we can be really, really proud of. And with that, I'd like to introduce Congressman Mark DeSaulnier.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I used to have that title a long time ago, but not here in Concord. So anyways, I just want to thank you all for coming. I particularly want to thank the chiefs for being here. Both districts, yes. We're lucky to have really good public safety in this county. I'm really proud of the job they do and their governing bodies do working with the community. I used to be on one of the governing bodies for 14 years when I was a county supervisor. Jill Ray worked with me then, and we're still here, Jill. You show up everywhere. So I want to thank Supervisor Anderson as well. So I'm going to go through a brief PowerPoint, and this is a specific town hall. If some of you who followed us, we do a lot of general town halls. So this one is specific. I thought it was a good opportunity to bring people. You've done a great job here. I was just telling some of the folks who have done all this work here with the cities and with the fire districts. You've done a great job on this subject matter appropriately, as the Vice Mayor just talked about. So I think it's one of the reasons the attendance is the way it is. We usually get more than this because you've done such a good job. So I'm going to do the PowerPoint and then switch off to the experts. If you can see this, can you see it okay, everybody? All right, there are 430. How many people have been to our town halls before? Oh, frequent flyers, I love you. You get something for that, but we haven't figured out what. So there are 435 districts in the House of Representatives. This is the one I'm happy to represent right now. It's almost all Contra Costa County from the Berkeley Hills to the eastern boundary of Contra Costa, with a little indentation there in the east that's in Congressman Harder's district. That's Discovery Bay. And then we go down the 680 corridor into Dublin. If the maps change in 2 months, a little less than 2 months, this district will largely stay the same. I pick up more of Martinez, and I pick up Castro Valley, but that's our district right now. It is a wonderful district. I've represented every community in this district at some level of government in addition to the Congress. So if you can see this, which I can't completely, so this is just a statement of the fire challenges we've had. The photograph's interesting. 3 weeks ago, I went down to LA and went to Pacific Palisades. That's in Station 69. It was pretty remarkable. And then three meetings I had down there was with UCLA students, their health departments, behavioral health, and with the chancellor. I'm a senior member of the Education and Labor Committee. So the cuts to UCLA, I wanted to talk to them about how they were responding and how we can help. And then I went out to the station house and met with about 25, 30 firefighters who were in that fire. And then we went through the community, met with some of the residents. And I wanted to do that because of this area. As you know, CAL FIRE and our districts, this is one of those areas that's similar to that in terms of the risk, the vegetation, and the egress, and the ability to get out. But it was really fascinating meeting with people who fought that fire. And then I had a lovely meeting later in the day with the mayor of Los Angeles, who's a close friend, who I served with in the legislature and Congress, Karen Bass, to talk about that, amongst other things. So it was very, very illuminating. Okay, next. That's another picture inside the station house. And my signature is a little smaller than the President of the United States visited as well. His was a little bigger in the middle. And again, I'm sorry you can't see this, but we can provide this. And for people watching at home, thank you to CCTV for doing this. You'll be able to see it clearly, but you can also see this online and go to our either social media or our website, and all of our PowerPoints are on there. Next. So this is the federal role. We do grant programs. We work with FEMA. So a lot of it, you know, the federal level is delegated to the states and to local jurisdictions, which we're about to hear from. But we still have a role to play, and a lot of the role that I would like to play more in this field as a senior member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee is work with my colleagues to figure out on mitigating the effects of climate change, or as I like to say to some of my non-believing colleagues, well, let's just work on the actuary level in the insurance industry of why weather's changing and how we can prepare for it. So we can be agnostic as to why it's happening. I am not. I'm a believer and have spent a lot of time in that field. Thank you. I mentioned this, you've heard this. I was appointed by 3 different governors, 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, to the California Air Resources Board that's been at the forefront nationally at dealing with climate change. And we had our experts telling us a long time ago that this was going to be a problem. So these issues we want to work on, but we work in a bipartisan way. The Transportation Infrastructure and the Ethics Committee, of which I'm the ranking member, are 2 committees that are very bipartisan, and we try to keep it that way. And both the Republican chairman, Sam Graves from Missouri, and the ranking Democrat on Transportation and Infrastructure, Rick Larson, insist on that. This is about getting infrastructure out to the American people. And on infrastructure, we have a big role at the federal level to be able to provide funds so that back to the districts and the local communities, so we can work on all kinds of infrastructure, including how do we get water to make sure that there's enough pressure, and how do we partner with jurisdictions at the state and local level. So you can see some of the things in there. We also do, and I hope we're going to continue to do it, something called community benefit projects. When I go back next week, we're in the middle of appropriations process, and that's where these come in, so members can work with public agencies and when we are in the majority, nonprofits on specific projects with lots of good oversight to get them federal money. So I think we've gotten about almost $50 million in programs, and we've worked with Confire for sure and with all the public agencies to get them money for projects that are important, particularly on communications, which continues to be an evolving part of our infrastructure to make sure everybody can communicate properly, and there's a lot of good new technology that we're trying to get out. So, let's see, next. These are a little bit more of the last page, what we've done, and then in the bottom underneath where it's headlined, those are bills that I've authored or co-sponsored. So in the Congress, you will present a bill and you work with other members and then your co-sponsors. And it makes it more effective, particularly when on issues like this you can get a member of the majority to work with you and get these things to be fit to across the finish line. Next. So it's just sort of the simple brochure that we've worked with the experts on that we have available, but again, you have a lot of this. And with that, I'll turn it back to our wonderful MC. All right, I always ask you this, where'd you go to high school? Las Lomas.
Thank you, Congressman. Now I'd like to turn it over to Moraga Orinda Fire District Chief Jeff Isaacs, who has 3 decades of firefighting experience at the local and state level. Fire Chief Isaacs, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Congressman, for the opportunity to be here and talk fire safety. I'm going to change things up a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Normally, our talks, we tell you about the things the fire district's doing. I can tell you about the $10 million that we've gotten from CAL FIRE to do shaded fuel breaks. I can tell you about the 3,000 inspections we've done and the citations we've issued to get compliance for the defensible space requirements in the Moraga Orinda Fire District jurisdiction. I can tell you about the $500,000 my fire board has given from home hardening grants. I can tell you about our ambassador program and the chance that we have to give information, neighbors helping neighbors to make our community fire safe. I'm gonna change it up a little bit. Winston Churchill said, fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. So I'm gonna ask you to have the courage to help us make your property fire safe. My question to you is, if you live in my jurisdiction, is your property fire safe? Have you complied with every portion of the MOFD Defensible Space Ordinance? If you have, thank you. If you have not, why? Why are you putting your house at risk? Why are you putting my firefighters at risk? Why are you putting your neighbors at risk? Making your house compliant with our Defensible Space Ordinance isn't just something we created. It's a way to protect you. It's a way to help my firefighters protect your house. If you've done proper defensible space, it makes it safer and easier for my firefighters to respond, Chief Brashard's firefighters to respond, to protect your home. So I want this to be a call to action. I need your help to protect our community. I can't do it, Chief can't do it, and my firefighters can't do it. It has to be a partnership with you folks. So please, work with us, partnership with us, come talk to us. I have business cards, I have the fire prevention phone numbers. We will happily come out, talk to you, educate you, and explain why you need to do the stuff that you need to do. We can't do this by ourselves. I need you guys. So please have the courage to step up, stand up, and help us make our community fire safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Isaacs. Now I would like to introduce Contra Costa County Fire Protection District Chief Louis Brochard, who has been with ConFire, one of the largest fire districts in the state, since 2007. Fire Chief Brochard, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, and thank you all for taking time out of your weekend away from your family and other things that you might rather be doing to be here. I think it speaks volumes that you're here and that you care, that you're interested, and that you want to be part of the solution. So I really appreciate that. I think Chief Isaac said it well. You know, today hopefully will be a bit of a call to action if not necessarily for you, for the community as well. It's kind of ironic. I had to fish this jacket out of the back of my truck this morning. It's 62 degrees out there, and I haven't worn this since May. But I don't want any of you to think that this weather is going to stick around. I don't want anybody to be complacent. This is the witching hour for fires in the Bay Area. September, October, early November is when the most destructive wildfires have occurred in our area. You all know just over the hill, the Tunnel Fire 1991, at the time, was one of the most destructive fires in the state's history. Fast forward to what we've been seeing over the last decade, and it has been an amazing change. We're not necessarily seeing these small wildland-urban interface fires. We're seeing urban conflagrations. And the challenge with urban conflagrations, where it's house-to-house, structure-to-structure ignition, most recently the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire, what we're learning is that every single homeowner, every single home has to stand on its own. It has to be basically a fortress against wind-driven ember cast, ember intrusion, smoldering fires that skunk around that 5-foot zone around your house, and then 3 hours later end up being a problem getting up into the walls, up into the attic, and then that structure is lost. And if the wind is still present, if that structure is lost, chances are the structure next to it may be lost. And it's a chain of events that we need to somehow create a break. Really, the only way to create a break is to have a home that has not just defensible space, but also has home hardening. And part of that is compliance with this newer concept called Zone Zero. How many people have heard of that term, Zone Zero? Okay, that's great. If you haven't, just Google it, Zone Zero wildland fire, and you'll probably get quite a bit of information. Essentially, Zone Zero, while not necessarily legislated yet, is that 0 to 5 feet around your home. Think of it as being a wall against fire. Nothing combustible, nothing at all combustible. No bark, no mulch, no plants, no pots that can actually accumulate debris that's flammable or combustible. And then the other part is the home hardening. All those attic vents and those eave vents, we want to make sure that that home is impenetrable to what I call snowfall from hell. You've seen those pictures where the embers are going completely horizontal, and there's thousands of them. All it takes is just one of those to get in your attic and start a fire, and it'll be a smoldering fire. It won't just start erupting. It'll be there for several hours, almost undetected, and then bad things happen. So, a little bit of a story. In April, my son was playing baseball in Southern California. My wife's a teacher. She was on spring break, so we flew down. We rented a car. We were going to do a road trip north. And like any good fire chief, I said, hey, let's take a ride up to the Eaton fire and take a look at that. So she played along, and we did. And I got to tell you, I've been on fires throughout the state. There was a bit of a wow factor for me driving up Lake Boulevard or Lake Avenue, I can't remember, right straight up out of Pasadena. The community was just gone. Not just houses, churches, the Bank of America, this restaurant, that building, a high school, gone. It looked like something out of a World War II photo after some city was bombed. Particularly the church, because the facade of the church was there and the big door, but nothing else. Those structures weren't in a very high fire hazard severity zone. They were the victims of this urban conflagration that started as a vegetation fire, moved into the urban interface, and then pressed down into an urban environment. Now, there were 2 success stories along this street. Hundreds and hundreds of homes, nothing left but chimneys and rusted out vehicles. But there were 2 homes that survived. And of course, I'm kind of geeking out on it and getting out, taking pictures, walking around. One of them, brand new home. Brand new home, had to comply with all of the current building codes and ordinances. so it's really not a surprise. A little bit of the vegetation burned, but essentially that home, no real damage. Ironically, across and down the street was a home probably built in the 1950s, actually a pretty small home. It had 3 pine trees in the front yard. Pine trees were fine. Everything around it was destroyed. I mean, everything around it was destroyed for hundreds of yards, but this house was not. Now, if this was your neighbor, you probably would sort of not be the happiest because it wasn't the nicest house, and this person chose to have their landscaping be essentially concrete. So all around their house was very low maintenance concrete, and that had something to do with that house surviving. Essentially, that house, I'm guessing completely unintentionally, created that zone 0 where there was nothing around it that could catch fire and contribute to transmitting into the structure itself. So the science says that zone 0 works. The science says that home hardening works. I've spent the last 12 months or so, especially after January really, traveling around trying to educate myself by attending different classes and listening to people that are actual scientists. And the one thing that I took away from all of the time that I've spent learning about all this is that there is no luck in any of this. It's all physics. We have to break the chain. We have to take the fuel away so that it can't burn. It's not luck, it's physics. And one of the things that's really important in a really large fire, you're fortunate to have fire agencies that work very, very closely together, that for the most part work under one communications center and one communications system. We train together, we work together, we collaborate on fire prevention issues and projects as well as emergency response. There's not enough of us. There's roughly 70 staffed engine companies in this county, from Discovery Bay to San Pablo and everywhere in between. That's 70 fire engines that you could mobilize right now if there was a fire in this area. First of all, not all of them are going to be available because there's all kinds of emergencies going on at the same time. But that's not enough to protect an entire community, especially in an urban conflagration. So it goes back to making sure that every house can stand on its own. Every house is capable of withstanding that wind-driven ember cast because there will not be enough firefighters available to beat down that fire. We saw that in the Eaton and Palisades fire. It takes time to mobilize the resources, and the fire usually moves quicker than we do. So I would ask that everybody that just take some time to research Zone 0. To Chief Isaac's point, if you haven't done all of it yet, why? And I'll leave you with this. One of the scientists that I listened to at a conference last March that was dedicated to this subject mentioned the fact that this is really an all or nothing proposition. If the community itself has less than 80% of the homes compliant with home hardening and with Zone 0 in a wind-driven ember cast event, the likelihood is that that community will suffer significant loss. So it's a collection of people that are like-minded. Firewise is part of that, to do everything that we need to do. Within each individual home and home site, the other analogy that was given to me that I think is interesting, maybe poignant, is that if we don't have complete compliance with the Zone 0 and the home hardening and defensible space, it's kind of like getting on a motorcycle wearing a headband and thinking that that's going to give us essentially the same protection as wearing a helmet, and it's not going to. So it's an all or nothing proposition. You know, those beautiful cypress trees in the front yard probably need to go. Junipers need to go. All kinds of stuff like that. So it's a change. It takes time. It takes money and funding, but it really takes individuals coming together as a community. And today, seeing all of you, I know that there's interest there and that there's a start. So I appreciate everybody's time being here today. Thank you for allowing us to speak, and looking forward to getting into your questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to get into our question and answer section. So I will invite the congressman and both fire chiefs to come back up to the front. And let me go over a couple housekeeping rules about question and answer. So this is a reminder, if you still have a completed question card that you'd like to have asked, if you can raise it in the air, one of my colleagues will come collect it from you. And as I mentioned earlier, if we cannot get to your question today, we will send a response if you've included your contact information at the top of the card. And two more reminders. Since this is an official congressional town hall and House ethics prevent the congressman from answering campaign-related questions, we're not going to take any of those because we are not allowed to. And we're going to start with some topic-specific questions. We have a ton of fire safety questions. So let's get into it. Our first question comes from J.C. Lerner, who asks, some fire prevention measures are costly. Can there be any financial help for those who can't afford it?
So I'll start with what we've tried to initiate at the countywide level, and it's a few years old at this point, but we recognized a couple of years ago when we had the opportunity to strategize on using Measure X funds for wildfire prevention that there's a demographic that is going to have a hard time affording to do all of these things. And so we did set aside some money to help low-income residents work at getting compliance. And so it's a combination of having contractors available to come do work. For the Zone Zero specifically, it's having a contractor that has gravel or rock that can be delivered to the home at no cost, as well as we've worked with Civicor to come in and work with specific properties at no cost to help them start the defensible space process. The challenge with all of this is that once you get it to where it needs to be, there will always be a maintenance aspect. It's impossible to walk away from that concept, so there will always be a maintenance aspect. Funding, no matter what we're talking about, makes the world go round, whether it's firefighter staffing or projects such as what we're talking about. So we do look for as many grants as we possibly can that can help us in that regard, but we do have some programs that are available through Confire for the entirety of the county for low-income residents to get some assistance. And I think Chief spoke about some of their projects too.
Yeah, I will just add to it. So MOFD, we have our home hardening grant program that you can apply to, and we will give the gutter glove or the vent mesh. I will be presenting to the MOFD board in October some ideas and the legal requirements to give district funds to nonprofit fire safe councils that could possibly go out and help individuals create Zone Zero and create that defensible space. There are laws and regulations that prevent us from doing certain things, and that's the research we're doing right now. So I'd encourage you to come to the October board meeting to ask questions and hear our presentation on that.
And I'll say from Congress's perspective, we need to do more. We need to do much more to help people get connected to the contractors and to the professionals to get this done. The house I live in, and have lived in 40 years, is in Concord, right in the Clayton line, and I'm 2 houses from Mount Diablo State Park. So our neighborhood, similarly, has got to do these things. Their houses were built in the 70s. So we need to do more. The grant process is something we work with the districts on at the federal level. There are a lot of grants in the almost over $1 trillion infrastructure bill that we passed. Most of that goes through to capital improvements, both transportation and other infrastructure like water utilities. So we can look at ways to use that money and goes from the federal level to the state with guidelines, and the state usually goes down to the local level. Transportation side is very defined. That goes to the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. On the other infrastructure, it goes to the water districts, East Bay Mud, places like that. And then we just have to do more. So as part of appropriations, we will work for specific things this year and then more general things, because again, these climate incidents are happening nationally. So in places in North Carolina and Louisiana, they need a lot of work on flood control. We need fire and we need flood control as well. So we are working through that process to nationally put more federal money into it. We have challenges with our budget, quite frankly, but we're very actively working with other colleagues around the country to see how we can do more. And then our office regularly works with the local government forums to see if we can, with our grant experts, make sure that we're aware of every grant dollar out there and being as creative, but also being accountable as possible to get those funds out. And that takes some work, I will tell you. And also partnering with the cities, in some instances school districts, and with the county, and it's just a partnership. But we need to do more. As somebody who's been impacted like this, like all of you, in addition to being a representative, this is clearly a learning process, and we need to do much more than we're currently doing at a national level.
All right, our next question comes from Alan, who asks, is there a plan to upgrade the fire hydrant system in communities so that there will be enough water pressure in the event of a Palisades-type fire in one of our communities?
This is a question we get quite often, especially after what we witnessed in January in Los Angeles County. One thing you need to understand is when new development comes to our community, the system is designed to provide water for 1 or 2 homes that are on fire. It is not designed to protect the whole community at the same time. So if we have hundreds of fire engines tapping into the same system, we're going to run out of pressure. We're not going to run out of water. We have plenty of water. We're going to run out of the pressure to fill our fire engines. So the only way to change that is a massive overhaul of the infrastructure. I know I've talked to East Bay Mud. The fire agencies in the county have had a lot of concerns about this. We've talked to them, but we understand what the realistic expectations of those hydrants are. They're there to fill several fire engines, not hundreds of fire engines. I wish I had a better answer and I could say, hey, we can have 100 fire engines tapped into that system and it's going to function fine. That's not what that system's designed to do. So do I worry about running out of water? No, I don't. For our normal events, we're going to be fine. If we have a catastrophic event, we have different options. We have water tenders. We have portable water tanks. We have systems in place to try to handle that, but I can't guarantee you that every fire engine is going to immediately find a water source.
He's absolutely right, and I'll add on to that, once you start to lose structures in a whole community, and you've probably seen videos of this, you have nothing but rubble, but you have these pipes that are all squirting out water. It's almost like little tiny fire hydrants open all over the place. It's all one giant system. The fire hydrants are not a separate system. They're on the same system as your shower and everything else in your home. So it goes back to, if we can prevent the homes from damage and destruction, then that also helps, because, as the chief said, the water systems are designed to deal with certain things. They're not designed to deal with an Eaton or Palisades type fire anywhere in this state.
And one of the good things is, in the appropriations of that big infrastructure bill, that's hard infrastructure. So there is a lot of money there available, so we don't have to go and find new money. That's already out. The total on that is $1.2 trillion. It was the biggest investment in our infrastructure nationally since the Eisenhower administration. I was proud to be very involved in that, more on the transportation side, but this is an opportunity, but it takes a long time, and we don't have time, as both chiefs have talked about. This is something that we weren't prepared for, and we should have been better prepared for it, quite frankly. But the good news is we do have a significant amount of money. We've just got to get it out the door and get the engineering done. I will say, having gone to multiple sites now, and for the trolls who don't care for me, I paid for the trip to Los Angeles myself, so I can't help it. I try not to respond to the people, the trolls. But I've been, the committee's been to the Lahaina fire, Napa. I went up to those fires up there. They're really hard to describe. The chief and I were talking just about, you see pictures of them like your experience, but physically going, I get chills just thinking about it. And I'll tell you, one of the moving things about Lahaina was we came around the corner. This was a Transportation and Infrastructure Committee that was paid for through the committee. But going through that beautiful town, you come around the corner and there's a Catholic church that is in perfect shape. And everything around it is just because of the infrastructure and how the building was built. And then similarly all the way around. And Napa was like that. The chief, when I did that tour, and that was one of the first big ones in Northern California, was just talking about how you'd catch a barn, and then it would go half a mile and nothing would happen. And then it would catch a house. But in Pacific Palisades, it was just everything. There was really nothing left. One of the really amazing things about that fire, if you think about Sunset Boulevard, drive from the Pacific Coast Highway where Station 69 is, and this was something that was a big subject of that conversation when I was there. They were fighting that fire at the back door of the firehouse. They were trying to protect the firehouse, and they were showing me the cannon that is assigned, and that was the problem, is they were worried about just running out of water to protect the lone firehouse. Forget about just getting out into the community, which at that point was largely gone. So we just have to do, and I keep saying this, we have to do more and learn from the lessons. And fortunately, here, you're in really good hands. We have learned, they've done a lot, both districts have done a lot to prepare us for this, but we need to do more, and we need to provide more money for that first question about how does the individual homeowner find out about this and fund the improvements. Because it's important we do it for people who can't afford it, but irrespective to some degree of your income, people only have so much money anyways, and this is for everybody. As the chief said, if 80% of the houses don't get this, then the whole community is in danger. So we're going to find more funds, but we do have a good chunk of money for this specific issue that the question was about.
All right, we have a ton of questions about home insurance, which is not surprising. So I'll ask this specific one, but if you'd like to speak more generally to difficulty getting policies and cost. Kate asks, what can be done to lower the cost of home insurance in areas like Orinda?
Well, this is another place where I've had multiple meetings individually with the insurance industry as a California member in most of California. How do we keep them here and understand their business model in these times? And create an infrastructure, a business model where they're incentivized to stay. So a lot of it is what we're talking about. The analogy is flood control. And there's been some discussion when I was in Sacramento about using that as a model in high risk areas, working with the engineers to say, okay, well, we're going to have special money designated for these high areas, just like we do with flood control. We just had a hearing with the Corps of Engineers who oversee that and do a great job. So that's what the insurance industry has told me. We need to meet models, public-private models like that, so our actuaries go in, assess the risk, and understand that people can pay for this. It's a value for the homeowner to have this insurance, but we could also deliver. But a lot of that goes to us doing all this prevention, so they feel like their business model and their risk assessment is appropriate. But it's another big problem, getting home insurance that's effective and is available and cost sensitive in areas like this are a real challenge, as you know. So we're working on it again. And for all these things, if people are watching on TV or watch this later, or for you, if you have questions on follow-up, since so much of this is in process, please contact our office. And we can continue to update you, and we will, if you're not on our newsletter, we should start doing as regular as we can in the newsletter where we're going in this process, because I know you're hearing from me in particular that a lot of this is in process and we need to do more. So I don't want you to leave here and think, well, I wonder how that's going. We'll keep in touch with you through whatever contacts we have to make sure you know. And if we have your individual emails or addresses, it makes it easier for us to get you the newsletters or anything specific. Anything to add, Chiefs?
All right, we also have a couple questions about evacuation from Moraga and Orinda in the event of a fire. Lisa asks, how will evacuation from Moraga not be a repeat of the Palisades given that there's insufficient exit/egress?
Thank you for that question. That's another one we get quite frequently after witnessing, Southern California. My apologies. That is a question that we get asked quite frequently about evacuations. As you all know, evacuations are a function of law enforcement. We work with our law enforcement partners at the command post to determine where and when we need to evacuate neighborhoods. And we do that in a very coordinated effort. We have a plan. We exercise that plan. For those of us that live here in Moraga and Orinda and travel the roads every day, we prove twice a day that our road capacity is very frustrating, especially around the school time. So how do we overcome that? Planning, training, working with our law enforcement partners, but you folks need to realize our job is to get you to safety, and safety is going to be out of the pathway of the fire. So safety isn't necessarily you're on 24 heading east or west. Safety is you're out of the path of the fire. So if you're sitting on Moraga Road, Moraga Way for 2 hours super frustrated, I'm sorry, but you're in a safe location. You're out of the pathway of the fire. I was recently asked a question about what do we do if you have to evacuate the whole community at the same time? I cannot dream up a wildfire scenario where we have to evacuate everybody at the same time. We're going to evacuate zones in a very coordinated, deliberate response to allow people to safely evacuate. But again, please remember, it will be frustrating to be sitting in traffic. I hate to sit in traffic just like everybody else. But if you're out of the path of the fire, if you're out of harm's way, we've done our job. You are safe. Chief?
So several years ago, Moraga, Orinda, and I think it was through the county fire chiefs, and I know it was through a federal grant, got $300,000 to get us all onto it was called Zone Haven, now called Genesis, and that since got turned over to Confire. Now we spend, I want to say, about $200,000 a year on behalf of the entire county to keep that system going. Virtually every, I don't want to say square foot, but let's just say square mile of this county has a designated zone for evacuation notification purposes. It doesn't matter if it's a law enforcement event or a hazardous materials issue or a fire. Part of the scheme of this is that, number one, it's fairly ubiquitous across California. It was used in the Eaton fire, it was used in Palisades, and it saves time. Instead of us putting a map out, a paper map, with our law enforcement partner at the incident while it's happening, and we say this street, this street, this street, this street, and then calling that into somebody who has to figure it all out. It's all more or less pre-designated. And so we can say Moraga Zone 1 and 5 need to be in an evacuation, and Zone 3 and 6 need to be in a warning. It's that quick, it's that easy, and then we can get that through to CWS or other systems to alert you. Part of really making this all gel and come together is for you to know your zone. It's actually an educational campaign with Genesis. There's an app on your phone, and I believe I was just looking a second ago, and the reception is not great, so it was taking a while. I believe it's Genesis Protect, and Genesis is Genassys. And you would be able to pull that app down. And if you're really interested, you can see what's going on in Tuolumne County today. You can see the entire state. but more importantly, you can see your zone, you can see what's happening. They change colors. It has information on the incident at play, and it helps you to start to get ready, right? The old ready, set, go. And I can't emphasize enough that you need to try and be as aware as possible, even before an event happens, to have all of your affairs ready to go, a go bag. When an event starts to occur is not the time to start gathering things. That should have happened weeks, if not months before. It's in the closet and you know you can just go get it. Ahead of that, I would say that you are probably your best advocate for when it's time to go. If you feel like, I'm anxious, go, get out. Go spend time with family across the bay or wherever, but get out, especially if you need more time, get out. The more people that get out early, the less complicated and frantic it will be in the moment when we have to try and get out a lot of people in a crisis environment. So you don't necessarily have to wait for us. Know your ways out. You know how to get in and out of your community. We don't necessarily believe in pre-prescribed plans unless they're overly obvious. If there's one way in, one way out, we know that that's the plan. But fire has a tendency to come from the left, come from the right, come from the north at any given day. So it's kind of like football. You've seen the laminated cards the coaches have, right? It's all predetermined, except anything can happen once the ball is hiked. The offensive line on the left could collapse and you have to call an audible. The same thing happens with evacuations. We essentially know where the routes are, but accidents, fire conditions, weather, all kinds of things could change that. So the nice thing about circling back to this Genesis product is that it will help us to identify the zones as well as the travel routes for that day, for that particular time period, which may be hindered by certain issues related to a fire or anything else. So look it up, know your zone, and become educated on that system, because we're going to use that to try and decrease the amount of time it takes to get you out of here.
Great. This next question I think is for you, Congressman. It's from Mark, and he asks, how can you assist local community organizations obtain federal funding for wildfire prevention?
Well, I mentioned this prior. You can contact our office and we can work with our partners. We're constantly looking on the community benefit projects, which used to be called earmarks. We're constantly looking for partners because the appropriators won't approve it if there isn't appropriate oversight. So we've come up with some really good projects to fund in that regard. And then the grants are more specific. So we're looking at those, as I said earlier, and with the districts and with other partners. And with on that, you can work with nonprofits, community benefit projects. When we were in the majority, we did nonprofits as well. Majority party being with the Republicans, want those specifically with public agencies. So there are lots of opportunities, but my suggestion is to contact our office. And I want to acknowledge my wonderful staff. We have 15 staff between our offices in Walnut Creek, Antioch, and in DC, and they do a remarkable job, but they work really hard. Janessa is our district director. So let us know, and we will try to partner, give you feedback. But also, if you've got ideas, give them to us, because we get a lot of good ideas from people who are regular citizens who aren't experts on the subject matter. Some of the best ideas, no offense to us, but some of those ideas are really important. So if you see something, feel free to contact us. Best way is through email. Before January 20th, we got about 5,000 emails a week. Now we're up about 10. So we're busy, but we're happy to respond and work with you individually.
All right, I think we have time for about 2 more questions. So this one is for all 3 of you, actually from Mayor Wolicki, who asks if there's any movement towards a broad marketing campaign to get the broader populace to enact robust fire hardening. Robust fire hardening.
So one of the things that we're waiting on, frankly, is to find out if we're going to have a unified, consistent regulatory structure from the state. That should be coming out by January, you think? I don't know if it's really going to happen or not, but the governor put an executive order together after the January fires for the Board of Forestry to come up with these consistent home hardening and zone zero measures that every community would have to follow. And so in a couple of months, we're going to know whether or not that is it here or is it there? And then at that point, we can determine how best to educate folks. And I think you have two former fire marshals sitting here, so fire prevention is something that we're very keen on. But one of the most effective pieces of fire prevention is education. And we have to educate ourselves, as I spoke to earlier, but we also have to help educate you and the community on what needs to be done. Not just what the requirements are, but also what best practices are. And to some extent, what we can enforce may not really be what everything that should be done. Sometimes what we're allowed to enforce is not really the best practice. So, and that's where I think you're seeing a disconnect with the insurance industry and the regulations, is that the insurance industry is saying we all need to do this. They're not wrong, but we can only enforce this. It's just the way the regulatory framework is set up. So we're hoping that that comes into better alignment here in the next couple of months, and then I think we'll be able to work from that with more effective education campaigns, because we'll know what the landscape looks like.
I would just add that the Board of Forestry has a meeting this coming week, the State Board of Forestry on Thursday. So please sign up, join that meeting. You can join virtually, let your voice be heard. They are down in Southern California for this meeting to hear from the folks that went through the fires down there. There's some very strong opinions on Zone Zero. So please participate in the process. You're here on a Saturday. We know you're interested and you're passionate about it. So please sign up and let your voice be heard.
All right, our final question comes from Carol, who asks, what is the most important step we can encourage our neighbors to take?
Well, in this regard, I think peer pressure is a good thing. Like I said, 80% of the community, however you want to define that, a street, a court, an area, needs to be compliant with the best practices for home hardening in Zone Zero. And if you have your neighbor that's got the overgrown weeds, this is an extreme example, I hope, the overgrown weeds and just isn't, getting it, you're at risk. Not only are you at risk, but so is the neighbor on the other side, so is the person down the street. So I think peer pressure is not a bad thing. You have a vested interest in that person taking personal accountability and responsibility to make things fire safe, not just for their house, but for yours also. And we're happy in our jurisdiction to take notifications and complaints and follow up with them. We just started doing warrants, going to the judge, getting warrants, and actually going in on single-family dwellings and doing work. And then we lien the property, and it comes through the property tax process, and we get reimbursed, hopefully, for the work that we've done. So, for us, it's not really about being kind and nice. It's about making sure that what needs to get done gets done. I know for all of us who have neighbors, we want to be good neighbors, but if that person's not really being a good neighbor, then I don't think it's too much to ask to be somewhat forceful with them and really explain why you want them to keep your house safe. But we're happy to help with that.
Yeah, I agree with everything Chief said. We also have a complaint process, so if you have a neighbor who's non-compliant, please reach out to us. We want to know about that. But I would also ask, are you part of a Firewise neighborhood? That is a great way for you to help educate your neighbors and to do things as a neighborhood to become fire safe. If you have questions about Firewise, contact my office. We're happy to partner with you and help you get started. Firewise is a great way to get that information out. And we also have tools in our toolbox through the fire code and district ordinances to gain compliance. It takes a little bit of time. We have to go to a judge. We have to give warrants. The property owners do have due process rights that we have to make sure we follow. But if it's that significant, please contact us.
All right, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon here at Miramani High School and via live stream. I'm going to turn it back over to the Congressman for a few closing words.
Thank you. If you could acknowledge my wonderful staff, they work great. Nice job. Not bad for a Los Lomos graduate. I just want to thank you all for being here. I do want to thank the city, and I want to thank the school district for partnering with us. These town halls have become much more complicated to put on. Heightened security. We do a lot of town halls. I'm told I've done the most in the last 11 years of Congress. Thank you. So it takes a lot of work to do these. I really want to thank you for coming out and spending part of your Saturday here. And I want to thank the chiefs. Both of you are terrific. I grew up in a firefighter's, please. I grew up in a firefighter's family. My mom's dad was an immigrant from Ireland to Boston, strange, and he became a firefighter. In those days, you became a firefighter or a police officer, and there's a firehouse in Lowell, Massachusetts named after him. So I can remember going down those old East Coast poles and going on ride-alongs with him, and I love doing ride-alongs with the fire districts as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I will say just on a general, please stay in touch with us. We go back on Monday and through Friday. We have to pass federal funding by the 30th or the federal government was shut down. So you'll be reading a lot about that. Of course, there have been other things in the news lately, but that's a real priority. I'm hoping that we can work in a bipartisan way, but that hasn't been, unfortunately, the environment for the last few years. So that you'll be reading a lot about that. If you have questions about anything non-fire related, please send them to us and we'll respond. I'll hang around for a little while if you have individual questions as well. But thank you so much for coming, and thank you to these wonderful people we have who are public servants.